Welcome. For students in class 11 and class 12, it will be helpful for you to understand the chapter-wise weightage so that you can give your due attention and time to the important chapters. And as we go through the JEE Mains physics chapter-wise weightage, you will notice that class 11th and 12th carry almost an equal weightage. So class 11 students should focus on developing a good understanding of the concepts from the beginning. And remember that practicing questions is key. As for class 12 students, maintain your focus till the last chapter. Why? Because modern physics, semiconductors and communication carry 20% weightage, that is 3 to 5 questions in JEE Mains physics. But before we examine the chapter-wise weightage for physics, note that this data is based on previous year's papers and the pattern seems to be fairly steady over the years. But you should assume that this may be different in your paper. So give fair attention to all the chapters. Now let's have a quick review of the recent changes in JEE Main exam pattern, which will help us understand the chapter-wise weightage pattern. So in December 2020, NT announced that going forward, JEE Main exam will be conducted 4 times. In 2021, JEE Main was scheduled in 4 consecutive months of February, March, April and May. And while February and March exams were held as planned, April and May's exams have been postponed due to the COVID crisis. Another change noticed in JEE Main 2021 was that in every subject, physics, chemistry and math, there are now 30 questions, 20 MCQs or multiple choice questions and 10 integer type questions, out of which you will need to attempt 25. And those 25 would need to include all MCQs and 5 out of 10 integer type questions. This is slightly different from previous years where you only had 25 questions. This change seems to have been introduced to provide slight relief to students who have been disadvantaged due to the ongoing pandemic. Now, whether this pattern stays in coming years or not, we will have to wait and see. Now, let's take a look at the chapter-wise weightage in JEE Mains physics paper. Note that the data presented below is based on JEE Main physics papers in 2021, 2020, and 2019. And when I talk about 2021, I'm talking about February and March papers because April and May have not yet been held. So if you look at this chart, you will notice that class 11th and class 12th carry an almost equal weightage, though class 12th weightage is slightly higher. In class 11th, heat and thermodynamics is definitely a key topic, and most students are fairly comfortable with this topic. Next 2 topics that carry relatively higher weightage from class 11th are rotation and center of mass. Most students find rotation slightly difficult as rotational motion is not very intuitive for us. But for JEE Mains, even if you are not very comfortable with, say, rolling motion, you can do well as mostly questions are asked on moment of inertia and rotational kinematics. So don't lose hope. For JEE Advanced, we recommend that you approach it from question types and you will find it far easier to master this chapter. Now in class 12th, modern physics and semiconductors, optics and electrostatics, all of which are relatively bigger chapters, carry higher weightage. Those students find modern physics to be the most scoring among class 12 chapters. So make sure that you give it enough time and attention. And do explore the 44 different types of questions that are asked on modern physics in JEE Main and JEE Advanced. And you might find it easier or far easier to champion this topic. And before we conclude our discussion, let's have a quick comparison between exam papers in 2021 and JEE Main exam papers in 2020 and 2019 and see if there is a shift this year compared to the previous years. And the answer to that is there has not been much shift, though the percentage of questions asked from class 11th was slightly higher in 2021, February and March papers. Very, very marginally, not a very significant difference or change there. Now, among the different various chapters, there have been slightly more questions from modern physics and semiconductors communication and simple harmonic motion and force and motion in JEE Main 2021, February and March exam papers. On the other hand, magnetics and current and electricity saw fewer questions. And that concludes our brief discussion on the JEE Main physics chapter-wise weightage. I am going to include the link to the blog that will have this information in slightly more detail. So wish you the very best and see you soon.